Have you seen the latest opinion polls? Wow. Wow. They do not make pretty reading if you're a Labour supporter. So I'm aware that it's only one opinion poll. I'm aware that it's not a company of the size of YouGov, but it's a reasonably sizable sample size apparently. And so these are the latest ratings and readings. These are the scores on the doors. Reform continuing to surge. They're at 29%. Conservatives have now picked up a little bit. They've gained a couple of points and they've moved up into second place, believe it or not. They're on 22%. Labour continue to fall through the floor. They're down to 21%. But Lib Dems are pretty much where they always are, 13%. And the Greens have picked up a little bit. The Greens are at 9%. So what does that mean? Well, it means if that continues, that Reform will undoubtedly be the next government. Now, clearly that's 4 years away. So making that prediction now is ridiculous. But if it continues, that's what will happen. What it also means is that the parties on the right of politics, if you can call the Conservatives on the right of politics, which is doubtful given how they've behaved, but the parties on the right of politics, if you add them together, 29%, 22%, means that they have now got an overall majority. 51% of the vote are right-leaning compared to the rest. The Labour Party are in grave danger of going below 20%, which for a government that only got elected less than a year ago, just coming up to a year next week, or in 10 days' time, that's an absolute shocker. An absolute shocker. They could be on the road to extinction, to be honest. So why are Reform doing so well? Well, two reasons, I think, really. They have limited power, limited number of MPs, and basically are just in a situation where they don't have to do very much. They can just sit tight. They can be the party of the right. They can be the party of common sense. Whether that's even true or not, they can just portray themselves that way and just pick up votes without doing very much at all. I think also some of their policies around things like migration, some of their economic policies, some of their policies on, I suppose, social issues and family issues and that sort of stuff are striking a chord. But I think largely speaking, it's just as a result of everyone else being so shit. They really don't have to do a great deal. The Tories were completely inept. They were in power for 14 years and buggered the country up and were useless. And so I think people have just had enough of them, can't tolerate them, won't go there again for a sizable period of time. And Labour have come in and proved to be absolutely cataclysmically bad over the course of 12 months. And so Reform, by default almost, have stormed to the top of the charts. Doesn't mean they're brilliant, doesn't mean they deserve it, doesn't mean they are necessarily offering all the solutions that people need. But just by default, because the Tories and Labour are so utterly shit, Reform are winning. And I think unless Labour and Conservatives can turn it around, that's probably what's going to happen in the next election. I don't think they're even going to have to do very much. And I think that's why Farage is being a complete coward on many issues, not committing himself to anything, not really speaking out, because I think he feels they don't need to. All they've got to really do is sit on their hands and just sit back and watch as the other two main parties continue to shoot themselves in the foot. The dangerous part of that policy from a Reform point of view is that the Conservatives are starting to chase them hard from a policy point of view. People like Robert Jenrick, Nick Timothy, some of the other sort of more right-leaning politicians within the Tories are dragging the Tory party rightwards and towards Reform policies. And I think given that the Tories have got sort of an inbuilt instinct for large chunks of the country to vote for them, and given also that they've got an infrastructure in place and a party infrastructure nationwide from sort of council level all the way to the very top that Reform just don't have yet, which is no fault of their own, we just haven't had the time to do it, but the Tories have got that. And I think the worry and the concern for Reform is that if the Tories can start to get their arse in gear, start to get their act together, which it looks like they might be sort of slightly doing, then they could start to take chunks out of that Reform vote. And it could end up being very close. So you could end up with something like Reform around 25, 26%, the Tories around 25, 26%, Labour at around 20%. That's what could happen. And then it gets very tight. We'll have to see what happens. So as I say, this is only one poll. It's only one snapshot of a moment in time. Doesn't really mean anything, but it is interesting. And the interesting part of it is that Labour are falling through the floor and their support is literally going down by the day. And the other part is that Reform have gone to the top by not really doing very much at all. They don't need to at the moment, but they will need to up their game over the course of the next 4 years if they want to stay there. What are your thoughts? Who would you vote for? Who do you think's got the best policies? And do you think the Tories can make a comeback? Do you think if people like Jenrick and Braverman and Nick Timothy and some of the others that seem to be a little bit more sane get their acts together, do you think they can drag them back onto Reform's heels? Or do you think people have had enough of them and will never vote for them again? Let me know.